Are you tired of your valuable ideas and suggestions getting lost in the shuffle? Well, that is why I'm introducing Direct Suggest, the revolutionary digital suggestion box that puts your voice front and center. With Direct Suggest, you have the power to make a difference in your organization. Direct Suggest provides value to organizations in various industries worldwide, including notable brands like Comcast, TD Bank, and Nokia. And here's the best part. Direct Suggest only costs 50 cents per employee per month, making it an affordable solution for businesses of all sizes. Plus, they have an incredibly high ROI and savings potential with an average 33 times return on investment. The implementation process is also a breeze. Once committed, setting up Direct Suggest from start to finish can be completed in as quickly as a week or less. Don't let your ideas or your team's ideas go unnoticed. Visit directsuggest.com today and start by making a difference with Direct Suggest. Use the promo code HUMANHR for your extended 60-day free trial. Again, visit directsuggest.com to learn more, and remember to use promo code HUMANHR for an extended free trial. Direct Suggest, where your voice matters. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Tracy Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. You know what to do. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening to this episode or watching it. If you are watching on Spotify or YouTube, let me introduce you to this week's guest, Barrett Scruggs, who is SoFi at Work's Vice President, serving as a loyal partner to a community of 900 plus employer partners. SoFi at Work is a holistic financial well-being benefits platform offering a suite of services, tools, insights, and educational resources tailored to address each workforce's unique and evolving needs. Scruggs graduated from West Point and served 5 years in the Army before making the transition to corporate banking. In his role at SoFi, he oversees a team of consultative employee financial well-being professionals who design and deliver SoFi at Work solutions through on-demand digital interventions for employers across the United States. Barrett, welcome, and thank you for your service. I thought that was a really awesome part of your bio. It's nice to hear, not only that you served, but also that you have this awesome career after the Army too.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. First of all, thanks, Trace, for having me. I find it very humbling to be able to serve, continue to serve in different ways, and grateful for my experience in the military. So thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about this week's topic, which is all about financial well-being. And I know we're going to speak quite a bit about student debt benefits and repayment programs. And I just shared with you before we started recording that, the majority of listeners are in this age group where they are likely impacted in some way by student loans. And so I'd love to hear, in your experience, given your role at SoFi at Work, what you see in terms of benefits that companies can be offering around financial well-being and student debt benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great kind of time, I think, for the question, right? As we sit here, millions of Americans are about to start making payments for the first time in 3 years on their government student loans. And I think there are a variety of kind of warning signs or red flags that a number of different people are looking at in terms of the impact that it could have, not just on the overall economy, but also these folks' kind of individual kind of financial health and well-being. So this, I think, a very appropriate kind of time for this conversation. Just to kind of set the context, it's estimated that Americans face about a $3 trillion shortfall in retirement savings, while at the same time owing about $1.5 trillion in government-issued student loan debt. Those are pretty big numbers, right?
Huge numbers.
Massive. And I think what's interesting is, and I think a lot of outlets and I think kind of companies have dived into this or researched this, there is this pretty strong link between retirement readiness, preparedness, and student loan debt. And so I think at a time when people have been kind of not paying or not having to pay their student loans for 3 years, while at the same time facing this kind of growing gap in retirement savings. I think companies are taking that opportunity to think about how they can best build financial well-being benefits into their kind of comprehensive benefits package to improve the lives of their employees, but also I think have a strong impact on the company's bottom line. So just big numbers, and I think a really important thing that companies are thinking through right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you first just started sharing those numbers, I immediately thought of my own experience with student loan debt. I did graduate from a public university in New York, and I had student loans because I was technically out of state. I was a New Jersey resident going to New York school. And I managed to pay off my loans, which felt like a miracle, but it actually was just a lot of hard work and sacrifice. And I paid off those loans in 2020, actually during COVID, which was kind of like a highlight in a weird way to a very strange
Yeah,
time. And I think about how much money it was, right? And I think about what I could have done with that money as an example. But at the same
mhm.
time, like, no regrets. I love the school that I went to. And, it was just financially the position that I was in, and that my family was in,
Yeah,
that, that was the way that I went to this great school.
yeah,
And so when I think about what you've shared around, not only the debt from student loans, but also the lack of retirement readiness.
yeah,
There's a huge problem there. Like, I think about how individuals are going to eventually leave the workforce, or think they can leave the workforce, maybe thinking that they have enough money in their retirement because they've been contributing 3% to their 401k for the last 40 years, but it's
yeah.
probably just not enough, and then they enter the workforce again. um, it's it's
That's
really
right.
it's really important that everyone understands, like, the magnitude of those numbers and the reality.
That, That's exactly right. And I love your anecdote because I think it touches on something that's really important. And it's that most people believe that student debt is good debt, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
leads to a lot of good outcomes, right? And I think there's a ton of research and data around how student debt and bachelor's degrees, more importantly, lead to higher incomes, right? So no doubt, student debt is a good thing to have in a lot of cases, right? But I think
Mm-hmm.
to your point, there are a lot of downsides that I think employees or students, the 18, 19, 20-year olds, probably don't think about in the long term when they take that
That's
debt
right.
out, right? I think only about 41% of workers actually contribute to their employer sponsored 401k, right? And it's either
Wow.
because they don't understand the value of doing that right now, right? Or they just simply aren't able to. And I think we're seeing increasing evidence of the impact that student debt has on that ability to contribute a sufficient amount to a retirement account to prepare yourself in the future. I think the other thing that's interesting too is there's this, I don't want to say misconception, but there is this belief that student debt really only right now is impacting younger generations, right? Gen Z or
Mm-hmm.
millennials. I think another interesting data point that I came across was that there is a bigger difference in the Gen Z cohort when it comes to plan participation, meaning someone, enrolling or opening up a 401k account with their employer. There's a bigger gap in the Gen Z cohort than with millennials and baby boomers, right? And I
Interesting.
think I'm sorry, the Gen X cohort, I apologize, Gen X. And the Gen X cohort has about a 15 percentage point gap between those with and without student debt, meaning people with student debt and the Gen X cohort are participating in 401k plans at a much, much drastically lower rate than any other cohort we're seeing. So it's not just this, this myth of student debt only impacting younger generations. It's really having an impact on, a cross segment of our workforce.
It's so interesting you bring this up, and I have a one thought before I share this other anecdote about that gap generationally, and especially thinking about Gen Z. And it's that
Yeah.
Student debt, I definitely feel like it was good debt because it was what enabled me to go to a great school. But the interest rate being like 8.5% is criminal, right? Like that's where even like when I mean,
Yeah.
you look at houses now, if you want to go out and get a mortgage, the interest rate
Mhm.
at this point, it's September when we're recording, is like north of 7.5%. No debt
That's
is
right.
going to be that great at that interest rate. And when you're 18 years old and you're like, I get to go to the school of my dreams and I don't have to
Right.
worry about paying for 4 years, like that's just not the reality. And you learn kind of the hard way how loans work.
Yeah.
And there's just so much, I'm sure there's so much we can go into there. But the anecdote that I wanted to share related to Gen Z is that I remember watching, it must have been an Instagram Reels or something, and I was scrolling along and I remember taking in this content that was talking about how Gen Z just simply does not want to live for the future. They want to live for the now. And that
Yeah.
there are all of these um, impacts on what, like you, even just the difference, like what you mentioned around Gen X, millennial versus Gen Z, and how they approach retirement planning and 401k planning. I mean, it's kind of no surprise to me when when Gen Z is hearing, oh, social security is going to run out,
Right.
all of these government programs are going to become, are going to be spread more thinly. And then, you hear even with millennials, they're like we are often referred to as the generation that will be the first generation to do worse off than their parents'
Yeah.
generation. So it's no surprise to me that Gen Z is like, well, screw that. I'm just going to live
Right.
for today. And hopefully
Right.
I won't be 80 years old working as a cashier when I should be retired, And I mean, I'm sure that there will be people listening who are like, oh my gosh, that sounds like my worst nightmare. And then I'm sure there are people who are listening who are like, you know what? Gen Z might have a point. So with that,
Yeah.
what are you seeing with your clients? What are you seeing in terms of benefit offerings that maybe
Yeah.
are more appealing to Gen Z than a 401k match potentially?
Absolutely. So I think one of the more interesting trends we're seeing is the number of job listings that mention student debt assistance or help in the job listing. It's
Mm,
doubled from 2019, up from about 3%.
wow.
And so small number, but big increase, right? At the same time, though, we only see about 13% of organizations offering student loan debt repayment assistance as of about last year, right? So we are seeing the increase in employers offering some sort of student debt help, and we are seeing more new job listings mentioning student debt as a key component of the benefit. So clearly employers, I think, understand what how they need to construct a benefit package and how important student debt assistance or student benefits is to that overall package. Um, I think from there, there are a few other things that I think are kind of gaining more kind of traction or steam, particularly because of the Secure 2.0 legislation that was passed last year, and that is using student loan payments as a way to do a match and do a 401k, as well as different type of sidecar emergency savings products that are meant to kind of reduce the amount of kind of hardship withdrawals or 401k loans that we see
Mm.
employees taking out on their 401ks. So those are the two primary ways, but I think the overall point is, and we're seeing it more now because of the payments restarting, we're seeing employers take a much keener interest in positioning student debt benefits and their overall package to attract and retain the talent they need.
That is fascinating. My wheels are just like turning a million miles a minute here. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, well, can someone like if a company offers 3% match on 401k, but someone would rather, 3% match on their student debt repayment, can
right.
they interchange that? Like, it benefits are often this thing, let's just say, in
Yeah.
HR that, it's like, okay, well, it's time for open enrollment. Like, let's talk about health
Right.
insurance. And everyone's like,
Right.
snooze, this is horrible. But just speaking plainly, right? But when you realize like how much potential there is to actually like be progressive and creative with benefits and
That's right.
especially financial well-being, like I talk a lot about earned wage access and like instant pay options for people, and that,
Hmm. Hmm.
recognizing that 50% of working Americans are earning an income on an hourly basis, like that
Yeah.
financial freedom, stability, and well-being, like that, it goes so much further than everything else. And of course, like at least when I think about my generation, the millennials, everything was about benefits. Like
Yeah.
and during the Obama administration, getting benefits
Yeah.
through the age of 26 under while under your parents, like that was a huge thing for us. But now we're
Yeah.
seeing that there's almost a shift, and this is kind of pointing to what you said before, that there is a shift in what benefits are considered like really, really valuable to people. And
Yeah.
health insurance is always valuable, of course, especially in the United States. But when we think about the amount of debt that people are living in, like the financial benefits are probably going a lot further for individuals. And the retaining talent is just, I call it the war on talent. It sounds like really
Hmm.
horrid, but at the end of the day, like it can be really challenging to retain people, and businesses have to be creative about their solutions.
Absolutely,
Very.
especially in this labor market. I mean,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. I think employers probably learned that lesson a little bit the hard way over the last 3 years with the labor market, tightness the way it's been. I think going back to the point around the kind of trade off between saving now versus paying down debt,
Hmm.
I think the other thing that we see with employees with student debt is that they are not participating in their plans, right? They are
Hmm.
actually participating in their plans. The issue is more around contributions, right?
Hmm.
And so when you have somebody, call it, I think there are 7 million people under the age of 25 that have about $100 billion in student loan debt, call it like 15, $20,000 on average, right?
Hmm.
When that person is faced with, paying down their debt now versus the decision to save for the future, it's an easy choice for them. They'll probably just pay down their debt because, to your point, they're not thinking about retirement. That's 30, 40, 50 years probably down the road, right? So I
Right.
think the great thing about Secure 2.0 is that it kind of eliminates that decision point, right? It allows a person to both pay down their debt while saving for the future. And they do that by using the student loan payments as their kind of deferred matching into the 401k, which I think is ingenious, and glad that Congress, officially passed and finally passed that
Yeah.
that last year. Um, but I think, what we're still seeing is individuals with student debt by the time they're 30 tend to have about half the amount of retirement wealth accumulation than those without debt, regardless of loan size. So like there's
Mm.
still something happening there that's preventing those individuals from saving. And I
Interesting.
think yeah, exactly. And I think where employers are also investing more, you mentioned earned wage access. I think there is this really interesting theme around giving employees access to their money when they need it without penalty, right? And I think earned wage access is an interesting kind of point around that. But I also think the fact that Congress is now allowing people to take emergency withdrawals from their 401k up to a certain amount is also incredibly impactful, right? At
Yeah.
that point, you've seen the stats around the inability for many Americans to pay an unexpected expense, right?
Right.
Most people don't have the emergency savings just set aside to do that. So what they're doing is tapping into 401ks. And I think that certainly provides a kind of immediate short-term benefit, but at the expense of long-term savings, right? You're kind of
Right.
pulling from your 401k now, which is impacting your longer term savings. So I think what employers are also doing is investing more in financial coaching, literacy, advising, as well as other types of financial well being benefits to include emergency savings products. And really,
Hmm.
it's not just having the savings account there; it's really, I think, incentivizing employees to change behavior through some sort of incentive or kind of matching contribution. So just a lot of interesting things just around this kind of combination of saving for the future, managing debt now, which is impactful, while also putting enough money aside for rainy days and emergencies. It's tough for employees to juggle, and employers are kind of really finding creative ways to weave all that into their benefits package.
Sure. I think it's a really important point that you mentioned the financial literacy, because this is kind of coming back to that brief moment in time where I mentioned that you're 18 years old, you kind of, I don't want to say let's sign your life away, but you sign for these like sometimes massive, massive, massive loan
Yeah,
amounts. And you don't really know just what the accrual looks like and what the pay amount or the interest rate, what that means at the end of the day, and that interest
yeah,
begins accruing the moment you sign, essentially. And I just
right,
think about how, if companies are providing financial education resources on top of these benefits, they're not only educating these individuals who work for them, but they're also educating the next generation, because as they have
right,
children of their own, as they become more financially literate themselves, they're able to share that information. And, when I think about like another thing that kind of to tack on to this war on talent and being competitive in this very, very challenging landscape and in the workforce, the
mm,
more you can help people grow, whether it's in their careers, personally, etc., the better they're going to feel about where they work. And we always
exactly.
hear about like, right, career growth and development and things like that. But growth and development can also be personal growth and development. And most of the time, that's really what it comes down to. Like when we think about career growth, it's not just like, oh, I got this promotion and now I have more money. It's also, oh, I became a leader and now I'm going through leadership
That's right.
training and I'm developing skills that I didn't otherwise have. And financial literacy is one of those things that, I mean, thank goodness for YouTube, because most people are learning that way these days, right? It's just fascinating to think about how you can really see these benefits as extending beyond, just enabling someone to contribute differently to their financial wellness.
That's right. I was gonna say, or TikTok. I
Or
think you're seeing a
TikTok.
lot of financial content on TikTok as well.
Right.
I'm not on there, unfortunately.
No, me
But no,
neither.
I think you touched on this really, yeah. I think you touched on this really important, I think, additional theme though, which is around communication and awareness, right? And just in general, in the employee benefit space, every HR leader is looking for ways to better communicate the benefits in their packages and
Mhm.
getting those employees to engage with those benefits, right? It's one thing for the HR team and the benefits team to construct just a perfect package, but if the employees don't know about it and aren't taking advantage of it, then they're not actually driving the outcomes that are needed to achieve all those different talent objectives they have set, right? So the communication piece is incredibly important. And I think what we have found in some of our work, unsurprisingly, is you need a kind of multimodal approach to engaging with the workforce, right?
Mm.
And that means you need to be in different formats, whether it's live stream webinars, on demand learning, articles, access to a financial advisor or financial planner, um, chat bots, et cetera, right? I think people need access to the information or content in different formats in order to engage with it, and they need to hear it a lot. And you talk about open enrollment. We're about to get into the heart of that
Yep.
season.
Yep.
I think what we have also seen is that a lot of employers just rely on open enrollment as the primary means of communicating their benefits and the
So
value of
true.
those benefits, right? It
Hmm.
has to be a year long engaging activity. I think some of the most successful clients and partners we worked with have taken that view, and we worked with them to create a kind of year long annual kind of thematic calendar around financial literacy and financial well-being. And that's where we see the most engagement.
Fascinating. And you're absolutely right. And anyone that's listening who is in the like HR benefits and comp and ben, space is just totally cheering you on right now. Like, yeah, benefits are annual. Like, we got to talk about this more. I know it because I have so many friends who are in comp and ben, and they're always like, it's a struggle. Like, we need more adoption. And it's just, it's really true that communication is really important. and when I think about what you shared about the number of job descriptions now that are referencing these
Mhm.
benefits, like it's a really smart way to attract the population and the talent that you're trying to
Yeah.
attract. Like you want people
Yeah.
who value the benefits that are costly to employers. Like there's an investment that is being made there by employers. And one thing,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any insight into this at all, but one thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently is the downfall to pension plans, and that there were
Mm.
so many companies back in the day, as they say, who offered pensions. And we see that especially the baby boomer generations, maybe some of Gen X, are never left their companies because they had these pensions.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
this something, especially with a bit of a rise in union activity, is this something that you've seen kind of coming back to the forefront, or even like the round table for discussion as an employer benefit?
I'll be honest, at least with the companies that we predominantly work with, that hasn't come up
Mm-hmm.
as a solution to the problem of the shortfall in retirement savings, right? I think employers have this, I think, very interesting dilemma they're facing, right? So I think next year we're posed to see maybe flattening or plateauing wage growth,
Mm.
which has been great for a large swath of the workforce, right? But has added cost pressures to businesses.
Yep.
I think they're also preparing themselves for higher healthcare costs, right? And so they have these kind of dual labor expense challenges that they're trying to figure out. I think another reason why investing in student debt benefits pays off in more ways is because a lot of them come with certain tax advantages or are already
Right.
baked into a 401k plan administration fee. So, instead of, I think under the IRS code section 127, the cap on annual student debt contributions is something around $5,000. That's effectively like a $10,000 cash bonus, right? Under our,
Mm-hmm.
our tax system, the tax rates. And then just thinking about the 401k matching on student loan payments, employers have already baked in the assumption of cost around plan participation and matching contributions. And so this is already a cost that is, expected to be incurred in their overall plan administration. So I think it's a very cost effective way to provide monetary benefit to employees without kind of drastically impacting your overall labor expenses.
Mm.
You know, Back to your kind of defined or pension plan question. I think I'm no expert by any means, but I don't see that on the horizon. What I do see is probably employers investing more in those innovative type of benefits to boost overall plan participation and contributions.
Right. No, I appreciate it. And, it's never easy to be put in the hot seat for a question. You're not you like the pensions, like when do they even come up? Part of me is
Right.
just like, are there more solutions out there? Like that was one way to keep people around. But you're
Hmm.
absolutely right. I mean, there are creative solutions. And when I think about too, even just some folks that I've spoken to who, either I prep for interviews, like, cause I do like some career services things
Hmm.
for clients. I think about sometimes what I hear as far as like reasons for not wanting to leave their current job, and they often are around benefits. There was someone
That's right.
recently who I had spoken with about or that she had shared that she didn't want to leave her current role, even though she felt she was underpaid because of the parental leave benefits. And, like it was regardless of whether you're the birthing parent or not, 16 weeks at 100% pay. And that is
Yeah.
extremely generous. And so when I think about, just some of that feedback that I've heard from clients or even like former colleagues, there
Yeah.
is definitely a creative solution there around retention through stronger benefits options and offerings. And that said, I guess, just to kind of take us home here, what would you say or what would you recommend to listeners who are, you know, maybe they're, by the time this episode comes out, they're starting to think a little bit about the coming year and budgets and things like that, and different recommendations for improving their benefits offerings coming out of open enrollment. Like, where can they start? Is it that simple to just kind of start with student debt benefits, or is there another kind of process that they should follow?
Yeah. So I think at this, when this episode airs, is going to be in March. I think at that point in time, you'll have had a vast majority or a large amount of employees restarting their student loan payments. And I think for the last 3 years, employers have ignored that kind of area of benefits because it hasn't been an issue for their employees. That will change. And I think quickly getting that understanding of the impact that change has on their workforce and their workforce's financial well-being is the first and probably most important step, right? I think HR and benefit executives need to obviously take in data, make data-informed decisions about what benefits are the most impactful and useful to their workforce. Understanding the impact that student loan payments the restart of student loan payments has on the workforce is the first and most important step. And from there, I think there are a variety of paths an employer can take. And working with someone like us in the SoFi at Work team, we can help you think through those trade-offs. So working with your benefits brokers, your record keepers, getting in contact with the variety of different financial well-being vendors out there during that process is helpful because it will provide, you talked about consultative at the beginning, that consultation that they need to understand where the trade-offs are and what would be most impactful for their workforce. So evaluate your workforce and get smart and talk to the right players in the space to help you make those decisions.
Amazing. This has truly been one of my favorite episodes to record and put out there. So I'm so glad that we were able to chat today. And thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing and all of the insights that you've shared. And I'd love to kind of give it back to you for a moment to share with the listeners where they can connect with you, where they can learn more about SoFi at Work. And of course, it goes without saying that all of these links will be in the show notes as well.
Thank you very much. So I'm on Twitter as CB Scruggs on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn at Barrett Scruggs as well. You can go to SoFiAtWork.com to learn more about our products and offerings, or just SoFi.com as well. And Tracy, thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed it as well. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.